At exactly 6:14 p.m. on my 40th birthday, my husband texted me 5 words that I would eventually realize had nothing to do with work. "I'm working late tonight, sorry." I stared at the message from the kitchen island, surrounded by the little signs of a birthday celebration I had spent the entire afternoon preparing. A cake with white frosting, 2 champagne glasses, a dinner I had cooked for 2, and a gift I had wrapped for the man I had been married to for 12 years. I typed, "No problem, I understand." Then I deleted it. I typed, "Are you sure you can't come home?" Deleted that too. Finally, I sent, "Okay. Happy to see you whenever you get home." He responded almost immediately, "Love you." I looked at those 2 words for a long time. Then something inside me whispered, "Don't believe him." I wish I could tell you I ignored that feeling. I didn't. And 3 hours later, I would walk into a restaurant and see my husband sitting across from the one woman he had promised me was completely out of his life. His ex-wife. But what happened after I saw them wasn't what you think. Because that dinner wasn't the worst thing my husband had been hiding from me. It was only the first thing I discovered. My name is Rebecca Carter, and for most of my adult life, I believed I was good at reading people. Apparently, I wasn't. My husband Michael and I met when I was 26. He was 30. We met at a friend's 4th of July barbecue in Virginia, although we both lived in Maryland at the time. He made me laugh. I made fun of his terrible grilling skills. He insisted the burgers weren't burnt. I told him they had achieved a level of charcoal usually reserved for campfires. 3 months later, we were dating. A year and a half later, we were married. And for 12 years, I thought we had built something solid. Not perfect, solid. We had no children, but we had a golden retriever named Bailey who thought she owned the house. We had a mortgage, 2 cars, Sunday morning coffee runs, Christmas traditions, inside jokes. The kind of marriage that didn't make people jealous because it wasn't flashy. It was comfortable, predictable, safe, and maybe that's why I never questioned Michael when he mentioned his ex-wife Lauren. Lauren had been married to him for 4 years before I met him. Their divorce had been finalized 3 years before our wedding. According to Michael, it had been ugly, very ugly. He told me she had cheated. He told me she had drained their joint account. He told me she had lied about where she was going. And most importantly, he told me, I never want anything to do with her again. So when Lauren occasionally appeared in the background of an old Facebook photo, or her name came up in conversation, I never worried. She was his past. I was his future. At least that's what I thought. The afternoon of my 40th birthday started beautifully. Michael had kissed me before leaving for work. Happy birthday, beautiful. He had handed me a small box. Inside was a delicate gold necklace. I smiled. Michael? He kissed my forehead. I wanted you to have something special. I put it on immediately. Then he checked his phone. His expression changed. Just for a second. But I noticed. Everything okay? I asked. Yeah. He slipped the phone into his pocket. Just work. That was the first lie. I didn't know it yet. He left around 8:30 that morning. At noon, he called. How's the birthday girl? Feeling 40. Impossible. I laughed. You're such a liar. I'll make it up to you tonight. Promise? There was a pause. Then he said, promise. That was the second lie. By 6:14, I knew he wasn't coming home. He claimed his company had an emergency with a client. Apparently, everyone was scrambling to finish something before morning. I believed him. Or at least, I wanted to. So I ate a slice of my birthday cake alone. At 7:02, I opened a bottle of champagne. At 7:30, I gave up on dinner. And at 8:11, something strange happened. My phone buzzed. It was a notification from our shared credit card. $287.46. Bellanova Italian Restaurant. I frowned. Michael's office wasn't near Bellanova. In fact, Bellanova was almost 40 minutes in the opposite direction. I stared at the transaction. Maybe he had ordered food for the office. Maybe the client meeting was at a restaurant. Maybe. Then another notification appeared. Reservation completed. Party of 2. My stomach tightened. Party of 2? I called Michael. No answer. I called again. Voicemail. I sat there for almost a minute. Then I opened the restaurant's website. Bellanova had a location in downtown Baltimore. I knew the place. It was expensive, romantic, candlelit tables, and reservations were required on Friday nights. I looked at the credit card transaction again. Then I looked at the necklace around my neck. Suddenly, it felt heavier. I want to pause here for a second. Because if you've ever been in a relationship where something just didn't add up, you know that strange feeling. It's not proof. It's not evidence. It's a tiny voice in your head saying, something is wrong. And sometimes, we silence that voice because the truth feels more painful than the lie. If you're already suspicious about where this story is going, stay with me. Because the person Michael was having dinner with was not who I expected. And what she handed me that night changed everything. At 8:32, I grabbed my keys. The entire way to Baltimore, I tried to convince myself I was being ridiculous. Maybe it was a work dinner. Maybe someone from his company had paid for it. Maybe party of two meant Michael and a client. Maybe the client was a woman. That still wouldn't necessarily mean anything. I repeated those explanations over and over. Until I reached Bellanova. I parked across the street. Through the restaurant's tall windows, I could see couples eating dinner. I almost turned around. Then I saw him, Michael, sitting at a small table near the back, wearing the navy jacket I had bought him for Christmas. His wedding ring was still on his finger, and sitting across from him was a woman with long blonde hair. I couldn't see her face clearly. Then she turned, and my entire body went cold. Lauren, his ex-wife. She was smiling. Michael was smiling too. Not a polite smile, not a business smile. The kind of smile I hadn't seen on his face in months. They looked comfortable, familiar, like no time had passed between them. I stood across the street watching my husband celebrate something with another woman on my 40th birthday, and then Lauren reached across the table. She placed her hand over Michael's. He didn't pull away. I felt something inside me break. Not because he was touching her, but because he looked happy. He looked free, as if I wasn't supposed to exist. I walked into the restaurant. Michael didn't notice me at first. Lauren did. Her eyes widened. Michael followed her gaze. The color drained from his face. Rebecca? I stopped beside the table. Neither of them spoke. I looked at Michael. Working late? He opened his mouth. Nothing came out. I looked at Lauren. Happy to see you again. She stood. Rebecca, I can explain. I laughed. It was a strange laugh. Quiet. Almost embarrassed. You can? Michael finally stood. Rebecca, please. Please what? It's not what you think. I looked around. Really? He glanced at Lauren, then back at me. This isn't about cheating. I stared at him. Then why are you having dinner with your ex-wife on my 40th birthday? He didn't answer. Lauren did. Because Michael asked me to meet him. I looked at her. Why? She hesitated. Then she reached into her purse and pulled out a large manila envelope. She placed it on the table. Because you deserve to know what's inside this. I didn't touch it. What is it? Michael whispered. Lauren, don't. She looked at him. You've had months. Then she looked at me. I've been trying to get him to tell you. My heart started pounding. Tell me what? Michael grabbed the envelope. Rebecca, let's go home. I stepped backward. No. He froze. For once, I'm not going anywhere until someone tells me the truth. Lauren's expression softened. Then she said 6 words I'll never forget. Your husband has been hiding money from you. I thought she meant a few $1,000s. Maybe some secret savings account. Maybe gambling. Maybe a credit card. Something ugly but manageable. I was wrong. Michael and I had always kept our finances mostly separate. Not completely. We had a joint checking account for household expenses. Separate personal accounts for our individual spending. It had worked for us. At least I thought it had. Lauren opened the envelope. Inside were bank statements, property records, wire transfers, and something that looked like a corporate document. I picked up the first statement. My eyes moved across the page, then stopped. There was an account in Michael's name. Balance, $186,400. I looked at him. What is this? Rebecca, where did you get this money? He rubbed his forehead. It's complicated. Lauren said. No. It's actually very simple. Michael glared at her. Stop, she ignored him. He has been transferring money from the business account into a company called Carter Holdings. My stomach dropped. Carter Holdings? Our last name? She nodded. But you don't own that company. I looked at Michael. He didn't answer. Lauren pulled out another document. This company owns 3 rental properties. I stared at the paperwork. 3 properties. All purchased during our marriage. I felt dizzy. Michael. He finally sat down. I was going to tell you. When? He looked at me. I don't know. After I found out? No. After you divorced me? His silence answered the question. Then Lauren said, "There is more." Michael closed his eyes. Lauren. She turned to me. "One of those properties is already under contract to be sold." Sold? I could barely speak. To who? Lauren looked at Michael. He wouldn't look at me. Then she said, "Me." I felt like the room had tilted. His ex-wife. The woman he had told me had betrayed him. The woman he claimed he never wanted to see again. She was buying one of the properties he had secretly acquired during our marriage. That didn't make sense. None of it made sense. I looked at Lauren. Why? She swallowed. Because Michael asked me to. I turned to him. You asked her to buy your property? Rebecca, listen. No. My voice shook. Now you listen. The restaurant had gone strangely quiet around us. People were pretending not to stare. I didn't care. You told me you were working late. I know. You lied about where you were. I know. You've been hiding almost $200,000. I know. And now you're telling me your ex-wife is buying something you secretly purchased. He looked exhausted. Then he said, I wasn't hiding money from you because I wanted another woman. I laughed bitterly. Then why? He looked at Lauren. And that's when she said, because he was trying to protect you. I stopped. Protect me? From what? The next morning, I found out. Michael finally told me everything. 3 years earlier, his company had started struggling. Not visibly. From the outside, everything looked fine, but one major client had stopped paying. Then another. Michael borrowed money to keep payroll going. Then he borrowed more. He took out loans. He used business credit cards. And eventually, he started moving money around to keep the company alive. He had convinced himself it was temporary, but the debt kept growing. And then came the lawsuit. A former business partner had sued him. If Michael lost, our joint assets could potentially become entangled. That's when he created Carter Holdings. He began moving certain assets into the company. But there was one problem. He hadn't told me. He had lied. For 3 years. And Lauren knew. Because the business partner had also been connected to her. She had seen the documents. She knew Michael was drowning. But why help him? Why would an ex-wife do that? Then I learned the part that hurt even more. Michael hadn't contacted Lauren recently because he wanted her back. He contacted her because she was the only person who understood the legal mess he was in. But there was still one thing I couldn't understand. Why hide all of it from me? He looked at me and finally answered. Because I was ashamed. I stared at him. That's your excuse? No. He swallowed. It's the truth. He told me he had spent years trying to be the man I believed he was. Successful, reliable, strong. He couldn't stand the idea of looking at his wife and saying, I failed. So instead, he lied. Every lie became another lie. Every secret required another secret. Until our marriage was built around things neither of us could say. And then he made the biggest mistake of all. He tried to sell one of the properties to Lauren without telling me. Because he needed the money to settle the lawsuit. That's why they were having dinner. Not an affair. Not reconciliation. A secret business deal. But there was still something bothering me. Something Lauren had said. She had told me, I've been trying to get him to tell you. I looked at her. Why? She hesitated. Then she said, because Michael isn't the only person who has been lying. My blood ran cold. What do you mean? She pulled another document from the envelope. This. I took it. It was a letter. From Michael's attorney. And the date was 3 months earlier. The letter stated that Michael's business partner had agreed to settle the lawsuit. The amount was significant. But the settlement had already been paid. Meaning, Michael was no longer drowning. He had no reason to sell the property. No reason to hide the money. No reason to continue lying. I looked at Michael. Then why are you still doing this? He didn't answer. Lauren did. Because the lawsuit wasn't the reason he was hiding the money. My hands started shaking. Then what was? She looked at Michael. Tell her. Michael's face changed. He looked terrified. And for the first time since I had known him, I saw genuine fear in his eyes. Rebecca, what? He whispered. The money isn't mine. I couldn't breathe. What do you mean? He sat down. The $186,400 isn't my money. Whose is it? He looked at me. Yours. I stared at him. My money? He nodded. And then he explained. 5 years earlier, my father had passed away. I had received an inheritance. I had never wanted to touch it. It was around $210,000. Had placed it into an investment account and forgotten about it. Michael had offered to manage the paperwork because he understood investments better than I did. I trusted him. Apparently, that trust had been a mistake. He had moved portions of my inheritance into various investments. Some performed well, some didn't. But the $186,400 sitting in the secret account wasn't missing money. It was what remained. My money, my inheritance, my future. And he had been using it as collateral for his business, without telling me. I looked at him in disbelief. You used my inheritance? If you were in Rebecca's shoes, could you forgive Michael after discovering he used your inheritance without telling you? I want to know where you stand, but wait until you hear what Lauren revealed next, because that changed everything. I was going to replace every dollar. When? As soon as the business recovered. But it did recover. He lowered his head. Yes. So why didn't you return it? There was silence. Then he whispered. Because I kept using it. My heart sank. There it was. The truth. Not the lawsuit. Not the shame. Not the ex-wife. Greed. Fear. And the belief that he could keep fixing things tomorrow. He had taken money that belonged to me and built a life around the assumption that I would never find out. That night, I didn't sleep at home. I stayed at my sister's apartment. I turned my phone off. Michael called 17 times. I ignored every call. At 3 a.m., I sat by the window, watching headlights pass on the street below. I thought about my marriage. Every anniversary. Every vacation. Every time Michael had told me, I've got you. I wondered how many of those moments had been real. The next morning, Lauren sent me one text. I owe you one more truth. Please meet me alone. I almost didn't go. But curiosity won. We met at a coffee shop. Lauren arrived carrying no purse. No envelope. Nothing. She sat across from me. I know you hate me. I don't know you well enough to hate you. She smiled sadly. Fair. Then she said, Michael wasn't the one who contacted me first. I frowned. What? 3 months ago, I contacted him. Why? She looked directly into my eyes. Because I knew someone was investigating your husband. My heart stopped. Who? She lowered her voice. His former business partner. Why? Because he believes Michael stole money from the company. I stared at her. Did he? Lauren shook her head. No. Then what does he want? She hesitated. He wants revenge. And that's when everything clicked. The lawsuit wasn't over. The settlement hadn't been the end. It had only been a pause. Michael's former partner had been collecting evidence. And the secret account containing my inheritance was the perfect weapon. If the account became public, it could look like Michael had stolen company money. He could be arrested. The business could collapse. And my inheritance could disappear. Lauren had discovered this. That's why she had contacted Michael. That's why she had pushed him to tell me. And that's why she had been sitting across from him on my birthday. Not because she wanted my husband, because she was trying to stop him from destroying my life. 3 days later, Michael sat across from me at our dining room table. He slid a folder toward me. Inside was a complete financial disclosure. Every account, every debt, every property, every transfer, everything. I've hired an attorney, he said. I know. I've also arranged to sell 2 properties. I nodded. And your inheritance? Every dollar will be restored. When? Within 60 days. I looked at him. You expect me to believe you? No. That answer surprised me. He looked exhausted. I don't expect you to believe me. He paused. I just want the chance to prove it. I closed the folder. Then I asked the question that had been haunting me. Do you love me? He looked at me for a long time. Yes. Then why did you make me feel like I wasn't worth the truth? His eyes filled with tears. I was afraid you'd leave, I whispered. You should have been more afraid of becoming someone I'd need to leave. He looked down, and for the first time, neither of us had anything else to say. I wish I could tell you everything went back to normal. It didn't. There was no magical apology. No kiss. No music playing in the background. Trust doesn't return because someone says sorry. It returns in tiny pieces. Or sometimes, it doesn't return at all. I stayed, but not because I was convinced. I stayed because I wanted to see who Michael would become when he no longer had secrets to hide behind. We went to counseling. We separated our finances completely. I took control of my inheritance. He sold the properties. He rebuilt the business without touching another dollar of my money. And Lauren? She disappeared from our lives after the legal situation was resolved. Before she left, she sent me one final message. You deserved the truth on your birthday. I'm sorry it took me finding it to get you there. I never replied. Not because I hated her, because I finally understood something. Sometimes the person who exposes the betrayal isn't the person who caused it. Sometimes they're simply the person who opens the door, and you're the one who has to decide whether to walk through it. 6 months later, on an ordinary Tuesday evening, Michael came home from work. He walked into the kitchen. I was making pasta. He kissed my cheek. How was your day? Busy. Mine too. He opened the refrigerator. Then he stopped. Rebecca? Yeah? He pulled something from his pocket. A small jewelry box. My heart tightened. What's that? He walked toward me. I know this isn't your birthday. I laughed. It's definitely not. He opened the box. Inside was another necklace. But this one wasn't expensive. It was simple. A tiny silver pendant shaped like a key. I looked at him. What does it mean? He smiled. Nothing. I raised an eyebrow. Nothing? It's just a reminder. Of what? He looked at me. That trust is something you earn the right to hold. I didn't cry. I didn't hug him. I simply nodded. Because after everything we'd been through, I finally understood something about turning 40. Your 40s aren't about proving you're lovable. They're about knowing what you will and will not accept. That birthday, I thought I had lost my marriage. Instead, I lost the version of it built on secrets. And maybe that was the birthday gift I needed most. Because sometimes the truth doesn't destroy your life. Sometimes, the truth is the thing that finally gives you your life back. And if there's one thing I learned from finding my husband dining with his ex-wife on my 40th birthday, it's this. Never be afraid of the truth just because you're afraid of what it might cost you. Because a lie can protect your feelings for a night. But the truth can protect your future. And sometimes, the person sitting across the table from your spouse isn't the enemy. Sometimes, they're the reason you finally discover who the real enemy was all along. But now I want to hear from you. If you were Rebecca, would you have stayed and tried to rebuild the marriage? Or would you have walked away the moment you discovered your husband used your inheritance without your knowledge? Tell me what you would have done in the comments. And if this story reminded you that sometimes the truth hurts before it heals, subscribe to the channel. Because the next story might just leave you questioning everything you thought you knew about the people closest to you.